lets you know as a viewer that they know what it should have been. Hi there. So, a Red Sonja movie has come out. This is the second Red Sonja film to be produced. The first one was in the 80s with Brigitte Nielsen in the lead role, and it had a supporting role from Arnold Schwarzenegger, not playing Conan, playing a different character. And it was widely regarded as being a bad film in the sword and sorcery genre. Now, this new film is one that I was really looking forward to because I'm a big fan of the Red Sonja comic book series, particularly those from Dynamite Publishing. I think the best way to go about talking about this film is to give you a very general overview and then talk about what I liked and what I didn't like about it. There will be spoilers, so if you are planning on watching this and don't want any element of it spoiled, then probably stop after you've heard the initial summary and then come back and see if you want to compare notes or not with me on what your views on it were. It's had mixed reviews is all I will say to date. I'll be interested to see what some others think about it because it's not something that's going to be even, let's put it that way. The general story is that Sonja is a young woman who lives in the forest, becomes a gladiator when she gets captured by the emperor and his men, then proceeds to free the other gladiators before defeating the emperor and stopping him getting what he wants. That's a pretty summarised version of events, but a pretty accurate version of events. Starting with what I liked about it, is I like the look of the movie. The movie looks good. Whilst it's obviously got a budget and budgetary constraints, it uses what it's got to the best of its ability. I like the sets, particularly when they are indoors and they look like good practical sets. There could have been this temptation to put them just on full CGI backgrounds, and they don't. They actually have physical sets. And I would prefer that 100 times more than just having CGI backgrounds and it looking like a real sci-fi channel movie. So I like that. I also like the way it's shot, the lighting, the atmosphere. I thought that was all perfectly fine and good and helps build towards the general atmosphere of the film and the quality of it. I also liked Robert Sheenan's character. He plays the Emperor, and the way he plays him, he doesn't play him all wishy-washy like he normally would in, say, Umbrella Academy or Misfits. He plays him kind of nonchalantly, but just sort of like a real dick. And it comes off really well. He is a baddie. You do think, well, I can see your side of things, which always helps with a bad guy. Because if someone's so 100% evil, you've either got to ham it up to the max so that people are enjoying that, or you've got to have that element of, well, I can see where he's coming from a little bit. And he's all about progress and machines and science, or science through magic, and it's quite clear what he represents, but the way he puts the character across and the way he plays the character is enjoyable and fun, and I just really liked it. I can see how it would grate some people mind. They'd want like Kulan Gath, the sorcerer, to be in it, and he's not. But I think if they've got to have a new villain, as it were, this guy was perfectly suitable. They do link his past back to Sonja's at the end, with him being a fellow villager of hers when he was a child, which I thought was a little bit like, wasn't needed really. It felt like unnecessarily tacked on to try and give them some link, when it was fine for him to just be this person who was also coming from the slave pits, and he was just, you know, very, very smart and cunning and driven. I would have preferred it to have not been linked, to be honest, because it just makes it a little bit too twee and cute that their backgrounds are so intertwined. I like that there's different creatures in this universe. They don't just have all humans. There are monkey people with like sort of baboon faces. There's a monkey woman, a monkey man, or an ape man, sorry, and an ape woman. And there's a giant cyclops. Yeah, it's a CGI monster, but it looks fine. I enjoyed that. There are other creatures just in the forest that are wandering about. You get CGI versions of them, and then when she's up close and touching their bodies, you get practical effects that she interacts with. Fine, I like that. I like his world building. I think that's good. I also like the way they say Sonja correctly. They don't say Sonja. That's just a personal preference, but I like that they say Sonja, not Sonja, because it grates on me when they say it's Sonja. I don't know why, it just does. But I was pleased to see that I didn't have to have a film where they said that throughout. I also like that they show her taking damage. They show her when she gets beaten up by men and other characters, and she has got big welts on her eyes, black eyes, things like that. They show that she's being sent to a healer. You see that she's got poultices on her, cuts at her wounds that will heal them. You have to allow a little bit of suspension of disbelief for how quick these wounds will heal and what she can do. It is a comic book character, it is a fantasy film, but I think the fact that she doesn't just get away with being super powerful and able to defeat everyone adds an element to her character, and it gives that level of believability and grit that makes you root for her a little bit more. And I was pleased that they showed that. I appreciate some people would be like, oh, it's violence on women, but it's not. They're in a fantasy land. She is a gladiator. She is picking fights with people, and this is how that character would likely end up in fights with multiple people attacking her. The most important thing, I suppose, for a lot of fans is that the metal bikini looks good. She's only in it for 2 scenes, briefly, and they kind of make light of it, which I didn't like, and that would be my dislike. But when they do show it, it looks good. It is not vulgar, it is not obscene. It looks like something that covers everything as far as it can cover it. And it's what the fans want. You've got to remember, Red Sonja is a very popular cosplayed character by people for many years. Not like recent years where it's all like slutty cosplay, but for decades back, people like playing Red Sonja in cosplay. And if you didn't have this proper costume in the film, and I think it should be in it more, then you would upset all the people you're making this film for. And you need to have it in there. Now, what they do is they jazz it up by getting rid of the bottom bikini section and giving her sort of a little metal skirt in armour, and they give her arm and shoulder pads, but they keep the idea of the bikini top, which I guess is a compromise, but really you should have just kept her in that as best as possible, because that's her costume. You don't take Superman out of his Titan capes. Why do you have to take Red Sonja out of her full costume? They try and give you a practical reason for it. I want armour, she says, but it is covered multiple times in all of the literature that there are reasons for her wearing the bikini. So they could have just worked one of those reasons in. Okay, so that's what I liked about it. Dislikes were, there's a romance story angle, whatever you want to call it, that comes from nowhere. That is not in Red Sonja's character in any iteration that I have ever encountered her. She would not just fall for a pretty man. Just wouldn't. And it just makes you, as a fan of it, you go, well, this came from nowhere. And even if you weren't a fan of the character, you'd be thinking, well, where the fuck did this come from? This literally, she just sees a boy and goes, oh, I love him. And but it's patronising, I don't know, belittling. It's just not becoming of her character at all. And I just feel it's cheap and crap as far as a bit of script writing goes. They've also softened her character massively. She is some sort of wood-living, eco-warrior type character. And that is not Red Sonja, as I understand her in any iteration, again, that I've read her leading up to the release of this film. I don't know what they're trying to do by doing that. The Red Sonja's origin is well established. There are always tweaks to it because it's a comic book character who's been going since the early 70s. So there are always tweaks to it, but at its core, it is generally a young woman was living with her tribe, village, whatever, and it gets raided. Her and her family get raped and murdered. Except obviously she's lives afterwards, but there's an element of assault, abuse, and as she's lying there dying, she prays to her goddess, help me, give me the power to avenge these people, and her goddess gives her the power to be proficient in weapons and combat in order to seek vengeance. And the twist in that sort of gift is that she can only lay with a man that will best her in fair combat. So this makes her not only obviously somewhat cautious of men regardless because of the experience she's had with them as a young woman, it gives her a reason to be angry, a reason to be gruff and isolated, and it gives you a good explanation behind her character generally and motivations for how she acts with others. With her just being someone whose village got sacked and she just escaped as a kid to live in the forest, you get none of that. None of it. And well, I think they missed a real trick there. There's obviously a discussion had, I'm guessing, with the script writers or the producers as to whether to include that element of the story in there. I think it was a massive mistake not to, particularly in this day and age where that kind of motivation will be easily understood, could be tastefully portrayed, or or alluded to, hinted at, whatever, and it's there waiting for you to use. There's no need to try and reinvent the wheel. They do have her going back, getting defeated about 3/4 of the way through the film, and her going to her god in the woods. It reminded me of like a Zelda, like when you go to the fairy pool in Zelda, it was kind of like that, a fairy shrine. And she gives her the power to fight back, fine. And she comes out with the stupidest Eva Marie red hair dye when she had red hair before. It just looks stupid. They should have just kept her hair from the start of the film. Anyway, but they do have that element of a goddess saving her and giving her powers, but there's no reference to the not laying with men or anything like that. So I think that was a little bit of a misstep that they're gonna regret having done, unless they do a sequel and they do a bit of retconning and say, oh, part of it is that this applies, or this happened to her when she was out in the woods and that's why she's not very happy. But I think they've cocked that up there, to be honest. They really don't want her using a sword in this. She uses knives. Quite why they don't want her using a sword, I don't know. She gets a sword, and yes, she does cut the odd person up. Whether or not they had a problem with the actress handling or looking good using a sword at close range with the cameras, I don't know. But they seem to want to get a sword out of her hand as soon as possible when she's up close. That might also be because they're trying to cut down on the gore in the film. There is some blood and there is some guts, but in reality, there should be more, particularly as the character is and how the stories are and the kind of film you're making. This isn't the kind of film that little kiddies are going to sit down and watch, so why not just go with it? Just have the gore. But they really don't want a sword in her hand. It was really strange that they kept trying to like get a sword out of her hand as much as possible. Oh, also she's BFFs with everyone instantly. They're thrown into these slave pits. She's BFFs with Rona Mitra. Don't get used to Rona Mitra. She's in it for about 3 minutes and then leaves. But she somehow seems to have bonds with all these people. They're following her. They're all behind her. And there's just a lack of writing to get you there. And that just seemed weird and jarring. Also, they don't explain how she's so skilled at fighting to begin with. She's lived in the forest, minimal interactions with people. Okay, she might have some hunting skills, but beyond that, this is where, if you had the proper origin for her, you would already have that sort of laid in. And also the eco-warrior plot lines and themes and messages are laid on real thick. Thick to the point where you go, come on, you are hitting me over the head with this now. And that, again, is jarring in the story. And the final thing I didn't like was that the ending, the very end, really pissed me off. Because all these things I've moaned about, and the things I've liked as well, they do what they did with the Punisher series on Marvel, or the Punisher series for Netflix. In this, the Red Sonja you want is the gruff, rude, smelly, beer swilling, mercenary, and you don't get that up until this jarring extra scene bolted onto the end where you see her in a bar, down in pints, about to do some trick with a knife blindfolded. That is the Red Sonja you wanted throughout this film, or at least I wanted throughout the film. But they give you it for probably 45 seconds at the end of the film and leading into a potential sequel. Why not just have that Red Sonja all the way through the film? It's frustrating. It really, really pissed me off, because you go, so you knew what you were meant to do, but you chose not to. And so it makes it even more of a sort of kick in the nuts that you knew that was it. And I don't know if this is a reshoot or this was an added extra bit, but it does feel a bit like, why would you just tack this on at the end? And because it lets you know as a viewer that they know what it should have been. And that's even more annoying. If they just didn't have that on the end and the film just ended where it ended, you go, okay, fine, they had their own take on it. Fine, I get it. That's their version of it. It wasn't a bad film. Fine, I liked some things, I disliked some things. I had a good time watching it. But because they put that bit on the end, that button on the end, it makes you think that they know what they should have done. And that just makes everything else magnified, all the flaws magnified. Should you go watch it? Yeah, it's on video on demand. Do what I did, just get it and watch it. It's an entertaining film. There is nothing wrong with it. The fight scenes are fine. As I say, the characters are good. There's some, oh, I know that guy, Trevor Reeve is in it for a bit. I was like, oh, Trevor Reeve, he's good, I like him. Doesn't have much to do, but I enjoyed seeing him all the same. I think they should have taken inspiration more from the Mark Russell runs or the Oeming run that were published by Dynamite. The Mark Russell run is probably my favourite Red Sonja run because she is intelligent, a tactician, and you've got great battle scenes in it as well that would satisfy a lot of people, and you get a flashbacks to backstory, and you please more people, which means more people will watch the film, more people enjoy the film, and you can make more films and more money, hopefully. That's my view on it. Tell me what you think. Be interested to know, I really would. And and I think Matilda Lutz, who plays Red Sonja, is fine. She's absolutely fine. I don't think Hannah John Kamen would have been a good choice. She was initially cast and then left the project. But Matilda Lutz is fine, but they needed to do the characterization of her differently, that's all. But yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.